Everybody, my name is Justin and welcome back to our BTR Garage. Today is an exciting video for me. We're going to be talking about the new 2022 Subaru BRZ and the Toyota GR86. For those of you that have been a part of my channel in the years past, you know that I love these cars. I had a 2013 Scion FRS, I had my 2017 Subaru BRZ, both of which I loved. Probably my favorite cars that I've had over the years. And I'm super excited to see what these new cars have to offer. They've been revealed. You guys have probably seen all the videos already from all of the big YouTubers about the specs and what's new, what they look like. And now I'm going to give you my take on these new cars, and there are definitely some things I am super excited about with the incoming cars. So just like in years past with these cars, the Toyota version or the Scion version, if you go back to the first generation, and the Subaru version, pretty different looking on the outside. That theme has carried forward here. The Toyota definitely looks different than the BRZ, different front ends, a little bit different in the rear end, and of course the interiors have their own flavor of Toyota interior versus Subaru interior, but we're going to start on the exterior of the cars, and I want to let you guys know what my thoughts are and which one I kind of prefer. As I mentioned, I had the 2013 Scion FRS. I loved the look of that car for sure, but I definitely felt like my 2017 BRZ was the better of the two, mostly because of the front end. I think Subaru did an awesome job on the MY17 and newer model years. That car just looked amazing. I still check out my pictures to this day of that car. I just love the way it looked, and I love the way it drove too. But enough of the old cars, we're going to start talking about the new ones, and I also want to get your guys' feedback as well. What do you think of both the Toyota GR86 and the Subaru BRZ? Alright, so let's start with the most important part of the car on the exterior, which is the front end. The front end and the aggressiveness and the look of that bumper kind of sets the tone for the rest of the vehicle and its looks in my mind. So the 2022 BRZ, I believe, came out first. They released their car before the GR86 came out. And I definitely think Subaru went the more creative route with their new bumper. They added some details that we just haven't seen on the previous cars. You have the familiar looking grille in the front of the bumper, somewhat similar to the 2017 and prior model cars. Then you have that little fake looking lip or piece. I'm not quite sure what it is. It's a black plastic looking piece, a different color than the rest of the bumper. Then you have those inverted teardrop looking things on the sides of the bumper as well. Now I don't think those things look terrible. In fact, I think it looks pretty good and certainly suits the styling of the rest of the BRZ. Now if we take a look at the Toyota GR86, which came out just a little bit after the BRZ did, this front end kind of blew me away. It was simple, yet also super aggressive looking in my opinion, and I really fell in love with this one the moment I saw it. I thought it was quite a bit better looking than the BRZ bumper. The little teardrop vents on the BRZ bumper, which I believe are functional, just like the vents on the 86 bumper. But those teardrop vents kind of threw me for a little bit of a loop. I certainly like the vents on the GR86 bumper much better. I think they're cleaner. It's just a neater looking design, and I think with their large gaping grille, which I think they kind of brought back from the original FRS, just makes the front end on the GR86 look super aggressive. I think it's going to look really good, and in my opinion, I like that one better than the 2022 BRZ front bumper. Now, taking a look at the side profile of each car, to be honest, there's really not a whole lot going on here. They're pretty basic, similar lines, and you've got that new vent just behind the front wheel. Again, I believe that one is functional to dissipate air from the wheel well, but they added that styling, which kind of reminds me of the vents that I had on my Lexus ISF. If you guys that have been on my channel for a while remember that car, looks pretty dang similar to that styling, and I feel like they adopted some of that styling here on the GR86 and the new BRZ. So both cars look pretty cool, pretty similar. Again, I don't think one is better looking than the other. Now the rear bumper on both of the new cars, also kind of a departure from what they've done traditionally in the past with the styling of the way that it looks in the rear taillights and the rear bumper section itself. And with both cars, it appears that they did away with the spoilers that were on the trunk lids in favor of a duckbill style trunk, where it's actually built into the trunk lid itself. You just got a sloping upwards rear end of the trunk lid, which in both cases looks pretty dang good in my opinion. What I don't like about the rear bumper is what they did specifically with the rear taillights. I felt like the rear taillights on my 2017 BRZ were about as good as it could get for that design. A lot more aggressive, sharp edges, and these newer cars, everything is smooth and rounded off. The rear taillights are almost elongated into the rear quarter panel, and there's more of a slope on the rear of the bumper as well. It kind of doesn't just drop off as a rear bumper. It almost slopes down a little bit, Maybe it'll look different in real life, but that was not something I was really impressed with on either car, and they're pretty similar, almost identical in the way that the rear bumpers look. So I feel like it looks more like a family sedan or your average grocery getter rear bumper than an actual sports car rear bumper. So on the exterior of the cars, I'm kind of leaning towards the GR86 on the Toyota side. I do like the BRZ. Some of the elements are cool, but really the GR86 front end and that front bumper really what sets it off for me, and I'm leaning in that direction. Now we'll talk about the interior just a little bit. There's not a whole lot going on the interiors. From what I could tell, they were pretty similar to the outgoing models of previous generations. I want to highlight a couple of the big changes, at least from the pictures and things that we've seen so far, is the dash itself is entirely digital now, whereas on the previous year models, you had some digital sections and then some traditional analog sections. The new ones seem to be all digital. The nice thing about an all digital display is you have all different kinds of potential customizations or different views in the dash depending on what, Subaru and Toyota give us. Now the other big thing on the new cars is the larger center dash display where your radio and navigation and that kind of stuff might reside. That's a big upgrade from the past. The one that was on my Subaru BRZ was not great at all. It was pretty simple, pretty basic. And then the older models were even more basic in that regard. Other than that, there's not a whole lot new going on in the new cars. The seats look like they might be a little bit bigger, a little more supportive, but that's yet to be seen. That's just what I can see from a visual. And outside of that, just some minor changes and design updates here and there. But overall, the interiors look pretty similar. One thing I am hoping is different on the newer cars is that steering wheels are a little bit thicker. The steering wheel, if you remember back when I did my 2017 BRZ review, I didn't like how thin the steering wheel was on the BRZ. It was even thinner than the steering wheel on my 2013 FRS. So to me, that was kind of a downgrade going to the 17 BRZ. I'm hoping that the new cars go back to that, in my opinion, a more sportier, thicker grip on the steering wheel. Gives you a little bit more easier control and finite control when you're in performance driving types of situations. So let's get down to the important part that everybody wants to hear about and everybody was hoping would be fixed or upgraded with the new generation of the cars, and that is the engine and, more importantly, the power delivery of the engine. Anyone that knows anything about these cars in the previous years know that they are infamous for that torque dip, the low horsepower, and even the worst torque rating on the cars. 205 horsepower on the 2017 and newer cars, and I don't even want to mention the torque number. It was so ridiculously low, but the torque was really low. And like I said, that torque dip was probably the single most thing that was talked about on these cars. How do you get rid of it? Why does the car have a torque dip in the first place? We're not going to talk about any of that here. What we're going to do is compare what the old cars had to what the 2022 BRZ and GR86 have, and why I am so excited about the new engine. Now, the new engine is quite a big change from the older models. We went from a 2.0 liter engine to a 2.4 liter boxer engine in the new cars, direct injected, of course. And with that nearly 25% increase in displacement, you're seeing 228 horsepower, a 25 horsepower increase over the 205 on the outgoing models, and a pretty big bump in torque, which is the most important part, in my opinion, to the tune of 15% up to 180 pound-feet of torque. That is awesome, and I think that's going to make the new car feel so much better and so much more responsive and quicker in those lower RPM ranges. Unlike the old car, when you had that torque dip, it just did not feel right and it was not fun to drive in those RPM ranges. Now, one thing I did capture in some of the photos that came out of the new car, if you remember back on the 2017 car, it actually has a little display in the dash that showed a horsepower graph or a dyno plot, more or less, of the torque and the horsepower. Now, with the new cars, they released that same image or that same display and what it looks like for the new engine. I'm going to show those on the screen here. You can see it appears that they eliminated pretty much the entire torque dip on the car. So with the improved power, the improved torque, this car should drive pretty sweet on paper. Now, I know a lot of you out there were hoping that the new models would be turbocharged and make even more power, up to 300 horsepower and even more torque. But I disagree with that. I think this platform and what they are shooting for in a pure, authentic, responsive sports car, keeping it naturally aspirated, was the right thing to do. When you get turbos on the car and you have more power, they become harder to control. The power bands become unpredictable in some cases. And now with the new A90 Super out there, if you throw a turbo on the BRZ or the GR86, suddenly you've got another competitor in that similar product level range that could be just as quick or almost as quick as the Supra, and I think they wanted to kind of keep that gap in performance between the two cars and sort of market them towards different demographics. So I love what they did with the engine. I wasn't expecting it to be a bump in displacement. I was expecting more power, not necessarily a 2.4 liter engine. So I think that was a great way to go, and only time will tell when we get our hands on them and we can actually drive them, get them out on the track and have fun with them. I have high hopes. I think it looks good, and I'm super excited to drive one. Now the final bit I'm going to talk about is the chassis and the suspension on the car. I'm really curious to see what kind of changes they made, if any, or if they're even big. Are the struts different? Are the springs different? Are the sway bars different? Or are they even reusing any parts from the previous car? From what I can tell, it doesn't sound like it. It seems like most everything is going to be somewhat changed from the older cars. In other words, I don't think we're going to be able to take suspension systems and sway bars and other components from old cars and put them on the new 2022 BRZ or GR86. At least that's what I think. Again, time will tell and we'll find out. But they have made some changes in those departments. Nothing super specific. They say they have retuned the McPherson struts front and rear, as well as the suspension. I don't know what that means. I think Toyota claims that their car is a little more racy compared to the Subaru BRZ, maybe the BRZ being a little more tame or easier to drive. The Toyota GR86 maybe a little more loose or drift prone. I'm just kind of guessing here based on what they've said and how they've portrayed their car's chassis refinements. An even lower center of gravity is one of their claims, 50% increase in torsional rigidity, and a 60% increase in front lateral agility. So a stiffer chassis, more rigid frame overall should make for a more responsive car and provide more feedback to the driver in your steering wheel and in your pedals as well. From a weight perspective, which is always important on small cars like these that have lower powered engines, it seems like the newer cars are about 20-25 pounds heavier than the outgoing models, but again, they do have that power increase. I think they've got aluminum hoods, aluminum fenders, aluminum roofs, all meant to keep that weight level down. So roughly 2,800 pounds is what I am reading for both cars. I think maybe even the GR86 might be slightly lighter than the BRZ, which was also true in the previous generation models, and I think that's due just to the higher grade materials that Subaru uses on the interior primarily. Their interiors were always a little bit nicer than the Toyota versions of the car. All right, everybody, that's going to wrap it up. They are coming, the 2022 Subaru BRZ and Toyota GR86. I really like what I see, you guys. I'm thinking I'm leaning towards a GR86. I haven't decided if I am going to buy one just yet. What I do want to know is, are you going to be buying one, and which model, the GR86 or the BRZ? And tell me why. What do you like about one versus the other? Is it the looks? Is it the interior? Is it the brand? Is it the name? Whatever it is, leave your thoughts and comments down below. I would love to hear from you, like always. And if you guys liked the video, give it a thumbs up. If you didn't like it, give it a thumbs down. And if you have not subscribed yet to the channel, please consider subscribing. It really helps me out. A ton of you viewers out there that are watching my videos are not subscribed to the channel. I would love to see you in the future. Thanks again, everybody, for watching and sticking around. I really appreciate it. Stay safe out there. I am checking out, and we'll talk to you all next time.